My name is Julia Marti. I'm co-editor of Edition Moderne and of Strapazin, and based in Switzerland. And I'm responsible for that Strapazin issue together with José.
Okay, I guess I should be next. My name is José Sainz. I am a freelance editor based in Argentina, and just like Julia said, I'm in the co-editor of this Strapazin issue that all of you are part of. And thank you so much for being here. And that's it. Who's next?
I can do it. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's my name and everything's already written. Yeah, I'm David Schilter. I'm the editor of Kush, and I'm based in Riga in Latvia. And yeah.
Thank you.
I'm going next. My name is Marie-France Lombardo, and I am co-editor of Edition Moderne together with Julia and Claudio, which I guess you all know already. And I joined the team in 2021. And I am also based in Zurich, although my first language is Italian, because I grew up in the Italian-speaking part of the country. Voila.
I can chime in. Conrad Groth, editor at Fantagraphics books in Seattle in the States. And I think I've been officially with the company for about 5 years now. So it's really creeping up there.
Conrad, you need to remind everybody that it's 3 a.m. in the morning for you. That's important.
I feel fine, actually. It's not so bad. It's just a little bit dark. It's great.
Thank you.
Like a dark and stormy night.
I can go next. I'm Johanna Maierski. I'm the editor of Colorama, and we're based in Berlin, Germany.
Thank you. I think that's it.
Hi, I'm Flor Coll. I'm living in Rosario right now. I'm in femiñetas, feminist in vignette. My English, it's horrible. Sorry, so sorry. It is an illustrated and transoceanic newspaper, self-managed and collective, with about 300 illustrators and writers from different parts of the world, and community diverse.
Thank you, everybody. Gracias, Flor. So I will take the lead a little bit right now. One more time, thank you for all of you for being part of the magazine and for being here. We have prepared some questions, like some general questions, some group questions, and some individual. But of course, feel free to exchange. I mean, if somebody wants to ask or to add something, just raise your hand or open your microphones, and just you can add to the table whatever you feel like it. I mean, it's not like totally organized. We really like the idea of you exchanging between all of you. Just in case, of course, English will be the common ground. But maybe Flor is not totally comfortable in English. So maybe if she decides to switch to Spanish, which is my native language too, and Julia is a Spanish speaker also, maybe we will translate if possible. I think it's important for everybody to be comfortable. So maybe, I don't know, if she decides to not to go with English, she will go with Spanish, and we'll see how it goes. We will manage somehow. We think the most important thing is for everybody to feel comfortable. So like I was saying, I think it's maybe as a start, I have this general question. Everybody can join in if you want. I would like to ask you, if you can tell us briefly in like, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes, how and why you decided to start publishing, why you decided to engage with your publishing practice as a start. How did that got initiated for each of you? Somebody?
All right. In a nutshell, basically, it happened quite randomly. I wasn't looking to be a publisher. I don't know if this is the experience also of other people in this group, but I came to know Julia and Claudio through another job that I used to have. And they told me that Julia and Claudio were looking for someone to join the team to lead this publishing house. And for the first year at Edizione Moderne, I wasn't a co-publisher, but I was part of the team. And then during the first year that we worked together, we realized together in the months that we worked together that I was getting more and more involved in every aspect of the publishing house, and that it kind of made sense for all the three of us to understand each other as a 3 people leading the publishing house. So I kind of slipped into it, basically, getting this job and discovering that it's very interesting, but it's never something that I set my mind to go, I don't know, a few years ago and said, I really want to go into publishing. Maybe about my background, I am a historian. I studied history at university. So it's a very broad topic. I mean, you can do a lot of things or nothing with this study at university. So it's not something that was my aim, but I'm very happy to be here. So it worked out really well.
Thank you. Who's next? David.
So I like your random aspect that you say it happened randomly, because for me, I started publishing now, it's like almost 16 years ago when I came to Latvia. I'm actually Swiss. So this may be interesting because there's Strapazin here. I was very inspired by Strapazin when I started publishing Kush, because I've read that for many years. But yeah, so I came to Latvia and I basically didn't really know what to do here. And my partner at the time, Sainz, motivated me to start publishing. And then we co-published Kush to bring comics to Latvia, because there was, well, I was really missing the comics here and I wanted to start something here. Yeah. So. And yeah, I had like good inspiration from already Strapazin. Also other comics and Fumetto, for example. I always visited Fumetto for like 10 years prior to starting publishing. So these were my inspiration point.
Just a quick comment. It's funny that you mention this first motivation of bringing comic to Latvia, well, which I knew, but I consider Kush so much as an international project. So, I mean, I've never been to Latvia, and I mean the glow of Kush for me is really an international
one. Actually, yeah, there's the first year we published in Latvian. It was international artists also, and but it was in Latvian, but then we had problems with the distribution in Latvia. We actually basically broke down almost after 1 year. We almost wanted to quit, and then after 1 year we found like a tiny fund, because we like invested a lot of money, and it was like after 1 year, like, oh, I don't want to spend my private money anymore. Like, okay, it's over after it went actually quite well, but the distributor we had here in Latvia didn't want to distribute us anymore, and there's only one distributor. But then we found some like small funding, and we just made the tiny magazine in English. That's how actually we came to the small format, because we first started with a bigger format in Latvian, and then we came to like tiny formats, low budget in English, and we started distributing ourselves first to like shops in Berlin, like friends bringing it there, and then gradually like spreading it all over the place, all over Europe and outside.
I just had a question for you, David. When you were kind of starting out with the press, was it something you could kind of devote your full time to, or did you have to have sort of another, job on the side to sort of, help fund the press? It just seems to be a thing for publishers where it can be like a real passion project, it seems like, until you really get, things off the ground and make it sustainable. So yeah, I was just sort of curious how that worked for you.
Yeah, so now we're publishing almost 16 years, as I said. But I think at least the first 5 years, I always had like a couple of side jobs, like some small like freelance jobs where I worked. But it was like the main focus was in the magazine, was like from the beginning quite a lot of work. But yeah, next to publishing, we also did events, and kind of some of the events maybe were better funded, that we made some money, like collaborations with grants, and things like that. But yeah, definitely like the first 7 years were like quite the struggle financially. And yeah, as I came from Switzerland, like the first year I had, actually in Switzerland, I worked for I had this job where I was packing Blick, like the biggest boulevard newspaper, and I saved like some money there. It was like a night shift working, was really well paid, and as the cost of living in Latvia was a bit smaller, I could like invest some of the savings in the beginning. But as I said, like, yeah, after 1 year, like the savings run out. Basically, it was like, yeah, I don't want to invest myself anymore.
Maybe we can continue with this presentation round, so we get to know a bit more about each other.
Who's next? Conrad?
Sure, yeah. I don't know, it's sort of a funny thing because as many of you might know, my father actually co-founded Fantagraphics way back when. So I've always kind of grown up, I don't know, surrounded by the kind of community of artists and editors and creative people. Just growing up reading, like Tintin and Little Lulu and comics all the way up. But what was funny to me is I feel like I maybe kind of took it for granted a bit when I was I don't know, sort of going through college and that sort of thing, and got away from that. But it was really, I don't know, sort of once I graduated college and sort of got out into the real world, I guess, I somehow rediscovered comics, and it was almost just sort of felt like this inevitable thing where I just kind of fell right into it. And it was but it was actually only recently getting to go to Angoulême a few years ago and do some foreign travel that I don't know, I just got to see like all this international production happening, and it kind of blew my mind, like what a world of comics there is around, because you can go to festivals around the US, but out there it's like you guys just take comics so much more seriously, and it sort of blows my mind the kind of level people are at, and just how people are really pushing the medium forward, and I don't know, just great designs, great art. It's been a real trip, just learning so much over the last few years.
Conrad, one quick question before the next one regarding this specific topic. So you never planned to get into this? I mean, you grew up with this background, of course.
I did, yeah. I mean, you know, it was always sort of a thought that, you know, that it was always it was always a possibility, of course. But I think it was also something that just kind of had to also fall into place. It was funny. I sort of started out just very, very small, doing some kind of freelance kind of, or not freelance exactly, but just, I don't know, just proofreading and very small things. And it just seemed like very slowly kind of worked in, and until now I can't even imagine doing anything else, quite frankly. Feel so embedded in it all now.
Thank you. So who's next? There's two missing. So before we can move on to the next question.
I can go next. So I studied architecture and urban research, and I always thought that I would do like an academic sort of route. But then I also grew up with comics in a way that my dad used to be a Donaldist. So we grew up with Karl Barks comics and reading Donald Duck, or Donald Duck, as I would call it in German. And so we would get the new magazines each month and so on. And I know all of the stories by heart. And so I was really fond of comics and magazine and comic zines later. And but I never really planned to do publishing. I just discovered through my studies, or also later, that I was more interested in working with other people's projects than actually creating my own in a way. So of course, I had this very old idea when I was a teenager that I wanted to draw comics myself, and I did that for a little while, and they exist out there. But I just realized that I'm way more interested in working with other people and consulting them and supporting them in their work. And I realized that in my studies, but also then later on, and I didn't really know that there is a job description for that. And then I kind of like slid into publishing, mostly, I guess, through the book fairs and art book fairs that I discovered, and that was very much informed by the Riso printing I did, because when I started Riso printing, it became more of like a mainstream thing, like 7 years ago. And then I was approached by Off-Print London, and they were like, don't you want to come and have a table and present your books? And I had like 2 or 3 zines, where one of them I made myself. And I think they just wanted to sell tables, but I felt really flattered, and I was like, oh my God, they see me. So then I decided that I will just make more books with friends. But in the first years, I still studied. So I graduated in urban research. And then the first years I also worked at retail. And even today, I do still contract printing for clients, and I do workshops or education, or I teach at universities now also from time to time. And then I do the publishing. So all of these are like legs that Colorama is standing on. So I couldn't live solely from selling books. I guess that's also due to the fact that I give my artists quite a high cut of the money, and I'm also taking the risk for them. So they get the cut of their money unrelated to how the book is selling. And that's kind of fixed in a contract. That's something I would love to talk to you guys later about. But anyway, so I'm co-financing the publishing. And so I realized, there's a job for that, and I'm actually really good at it. So I'm going to stick with it. But it's also something that happened, was never a plan, like similar to some of you guys. Yeah.
Thank you, Johanna. Flor is missing. She's the only one left before we can move on to the next. Flor, do you want to speak Spanish or English? Or I don't know, Latvian maybe.
My English in the morning is more horrible. Puedo hablar en castellano, ¿verdad? Sí. Bueno, nosotras tenemos 4 años, 4 years. No, voy a hablar en castellano porque me voy a empezar a confundir. Tenemos 4 años de producción autogestionada de nuestro periódico ilustrado y en viñeta, con una comunidad que, bueno, atraviesa mis 2 fronteras, un poco Argentina y España, luego de un trabajo de investigación sobre cómics y feminismos, empecé a cruzar algunas colaboraciones que empezaron siendo apenas 10, 12 y terminaron completando un periódico que hoy tiene 10 ediciones a color.
Just a sec. If you can, disculpe, pero José, ¿puedes traducir para los otros?
Yes, I was thinking about maybe about doing. Oh, okay, I was thinking about maybe she should finish and then I will do a sum up. But I will sum up this quickly. Flor was born in Argentina. She's a journalist, and a couple of years ago she moved to Barcelona to study a master's degree. I think I'm translating that right. And while she was studying there, she during the master she researched about comics and feminism. And after that, she decided, somehow as a result of the research, to start putting together Femiñetas, which is her publishing project, which is basically a newspaper that includes a lot of comics and illustration, also text, mostly nonfiction, that's essay and articles, etc. And she's been doing that for 4 years now from Barcelona, but like we always think of Femiñetas as a project that is based on both countries, that's Spain and Argentina, because there's like this network of collaborators and friends who we help. I'm part of that, I think. Femiñetas from Argentina, even though Flor lives in Barcelona. And she's been doing that for 4 years now. In March 2022, she published issue number 10. And I think she, like the newspaper already has something like 250 or 300 collaborators between illustrators and writers in just a couple of years, which is kind of amazing. I think that's it, basically. Everybody got it? Hope that was right.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Y bueno, intentamos autogestionarnos de todas las maneras posibles con realización de ferias, festivales, la venta de nuestro periódico también a través de la web. En la pandemia pudimos también establecer una tienda, pero bueno, tenemos muy ricos lazos de todas las colaboradoras que forman la comunidad que se fue extendiendo en estos últimos años. Y ahora es la gran pregunta de cómo seguir con la dificultad económica que implica, autopublicarse en tiempos donde, es cada vez más complejo conseguir fondos. Así que,
okay.
La pregunta.
I will briefly translate that. Flor was saying that she has, like Femiñetas, like every self-funded project or self-publishing project, has a lot of problems dealing with money, with how getting ahead, how getting everybody paid, how making a profit out of it, blah, 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 which is basically the same every one of us is dealing with in our publishing houses or publishing projects, I guess. So at the end of what she just said, she was saying that like the next step is to keep on with the challenge of having this, like the newspaper running in a world that is getting more and more complicated every time. I think that was basically it. And I would like to apologize with everyone for being such a lousy translator, but I think I kind of got it.
No, you did very well. I think there was just one detail missing, as Flor also explained something about the community, which I believe is important, but you are much more
Yeah.
than I am.
Yes, Flora was saying that the existence of the project relies an awful lot in a good way in the community created around the newspaper. That's the network or family of both collaborators and friends spread it in many places in the world, but mostly in Spain, where she's based, and in Rosario, and in Argentina, where she was born, which is actually where she is right now because she's visiting. So she was saying that like the newspaper relies heavily on that network, like on the family of femiñetas. And there's something missing, I think, that I took it for granted, but should clarify is that femiñetas is how to say it, like a has a gender oriented agenda. I mean, it's mostly about feminism, like different topics that revolve around feminism. I think I didn't say that before, and I think that's important to mention. Now, if you feel like it, I hope so, we can move on to, I have like one question for each of you. But of course, if during the answers, if some of you want to ask something else to that person or to everybody else, of course, just raise your hand and feel free to go. I would like to start with Marie France. Marie France, I never know how to pronounce your name. Maybe you can help me with that.
It's Marie France.
Marie France. Okay, like in French almost.
Like
I am getting
Marie,
that right.
and then just France, like you would say France in French.
France. Okay, thank you for that. So regarding Edition Moderne, you know, there's every time I held one of your books in my hands, every time it felt like something really special, like I was holding something like really precious, you know, and that's not something to take for granted. And many times, or almost every time, I had the impression that content and format were deeply related, you know, that you put a lot of thought and a lot of time and effort and crafting into that. My question is how important it is for you, maybe we can call it the material personality of each book.
I would answer this by prefacing that we do this as three people, me, Julia, and Claudio, but I'm the only one who has not a background in design. I mean, I've worked for designers and with designers, but as I said, I didn't study graphic design, for example, while Julia and Claudio did that. So it was actually something that was very clear to me from the beginning when I began working with them, that it is something that is essential to the identity of the new generation of Edition Moderne. And how can I explain this? We devise up our tasks in the publishing house, but still when we come to the books, we still discuss basically everything together. We devise the books with somebody who has the project lead with the book, also for questions about proofreading, about contact with the author, about I don't know, trying to get them through the process of storyboarding, or I don't know, changing something in the story or how it is told. But it is the materiality and how the book, the form and the content are very intertwined. And I think it's also something that it's given by the fact that our graphic design, or how we make these books, is in-house. A lot of, I mean, through Julia and Claudio, basically, because a lot of publishing houses work with freelancers, or have maybe people outside of the publishing house whose job is just, I mean, not that it's a small job, but it's just to design the book, and the contact with the author and the rest of the team is very limited. Well, in our case, it's something that is almost inseparable, if you will, especially if it's the original version or the original language. If we start from the manuscript and the storyboard and up until we have the book as a finished product, it is a collaboration between publishing house and author. And I think it was also a decision that probably was took before I was living at the publishing house, when Julia and Claudia took over, that it's very important that the book feels like it has an individual feel. I think they chose explicitly to not want to have the feel of having like a series. That was something that a few years ago was also done at Edizione Moderne, where a lot of books had the same, basically corporate identity, the same format, the same paper. And this is something that they try to change up, and I feel it adds a lot of value to the book. As you said, everyone feels extremely different, and the content, the story, and the form kind of are basically yeah, inseparable. And I feel it's something that kind of defines us. So I think it's absolutely essential and central to what we do. And as a feedback from authors, we also hear that it's something that they really appreciate, because they feel like they are being heard when they write the story. The object that is going to come out is something that makes them happy at the end. It's something that they're proud of, and it is always a collaboration, and that is also part that is central to how we work. And also not only because of the object, but it's because it's something we like to do. It's the part of the job that is actually what motivates you, the being able to talk with these people about their stories, how they're thinking about them, what they imagine the book will be like, and then exchanging ideas. So I think the fact that we do this in-house and with the authors at the same time is something that is absolutely central and kind of defines this publishing house.
Maybe because
you're doing great, so keep up the good job.
Sorry, maybe because I have this double perspective as an editor of that issue and also part of the Edizione Moderne team. I just want to add one detail, because Marie-France was so described her role in that designing process so low profile. And I want to precise that, because she is our hawk eye when it comes to the designing process, and this is also an active part of designing a book somehow.
So basically, to give you an idea how we have this project lead per book, so one person is responsible for the book, and in my case, since I'm not designing the books, I will collaborate with either Julia or Claudio for the design part, while I take over the whole proofreading, the contact with the author. While if, for example, Julia has the project lead, she will do, of course, both things at the same time. But the exchange in the team of what do you think about this cover proposition? What do you think about what if we put the colophon here or here? It's something that we discuss also as a team of 3 people.
Okay, thank you. It really feels like you're doing a lot of hard work every time, like you're starting out of scratch with every book, because everything feels completely different, like everyone feels completely different to the other one. In order to keep up with this topic, I would like to ask something to Johanna, because for me, the Colorama books have the same feel, like the idea that, like the feel that there was a lot of work into that. And the one thing that makes Colorama different to the rest of the publishers or publishing houses in today's conversation is that it's not the only one that is based on resale printing, but it's also the only one who owns the means of production. I think Johanna has control over the whole process. And you know, I was while I was taking notes for today's conversation, I reread an interview by Kim Yuha to Johanna. I think it was published in the Comics Journal a couple of years ago. And Johanna said something like, I think it's beautiful, and I would like to ask you to elaborate a little bit on that. You said make that for you, making books is like building tiny houses. I think it's a beautiful sentence and a beautiful way of approaching like the publishing practice. And I think it's also related to your architecture background somehow. And I would like to ask you to elaborate on that.
Yeah, I think that connects also to a lot of things that Marie-France has talked about now. But for me, there's a couple of aspects that play into that. Of course, the first thing is trying to translate the story into a book form, which happens collaboratively. And then one aspect is to translate it in a way so the artist feels seen. But the other one is a more selfish one where I can experiment a technique that I haven't used before or that I find interesting, or how I can show off ideas that I have. So that's basically creating these books is sort of my artistic or creative expression of like creating something and translating something. But sometimes it is also driven by the fact that I want to do something with like a ribbon. And then I feel maybe that fits a certain book, but then the artist says no. So I'm waiting for one book where I can finally do something with ribbons and a bow or something, even though it will take many years to finish the binding. So yeah, I think it's with the tiny houses aspects, I have to work on my I work the best way if I have like different things where I can switch off. So I couldn't only like do the editing aspect of, or only designing, or only like working in InDesign or printing or binding. I have to like switch between all of these things to keep to keep being productive. So I need a lot of different dopamine from different things. And switching between all these tasks helps me to do that. And so I can really hyper focus on that. And I think with the house, it's like a similar way. You need like a technician, and you need like an electrician and details and everything. So I think the analogy is like makes perfect sense, that you have to keep all these things in mind. And also you need to collaborate with people who are better at things that you are in. For example, since a couple of years now that my editions are so high, I have to also work with a bookbinder for publications that are just glue bound, for example, or like that are like saddle stitch bound. So he's doing like bindings for me. Or for example, the last book that I did with Mireille or with Nigel Panasco is her artist name, was also like an open thread bound spine, which is a reference to like Nino's book that I did together with Edition Moderne. And this is something where I wouldn't have the machinery for. But yeah, so it's very much just stimulating my brain, trying different techniques, working together with artists, doing something that I think is fun, I think is also a big part. So sometimes I do very uneconomic and very stupid decisions when it comes to finishing books, just because I want to do it. So for example, the calendar project is something where I pay each artist like a small amount, and then I decided to print all the covers with silk screen myself, because I learned it this year and I really enjoy doing it. But it's like 250 calendars. I mean, the edition is quite low still, but still it's like 250 calendars, 2 colors. And then I had just learned it a couple of months ago, but I just love doing it. So I'm doing it, even though if I would count all the hours that I'm putting into production, it's stupid. Also, same goes for Clubhouse. The recent edition was hand bound with glue, and then it has an end paper with nylon. And the edition is 500 or so, I think, for Clubhouse this year. And it takes a really, really long time to do it. And but I can kind of afford to do it because I'm exploiting my own time. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's, yeah, I think, so it gives me the freedom to take a lot of risks when it comes to production. which other people couldn't do because they would have to pay someone to do all this labor. And I don't have to do that because I'm doing it myself. Yeah, so I guess that's like a circling around your question. Yeah.
Yes, totally. Thank you, Johanna. Now I would like to ask something to David from Kush. David, you mentioned this briefly before in your first intervention, but I would like to ask you to elaborate a little bit on how how Kush evolved from its original format to its signature format, I would say, like this tiny books, this tiny size you've been using for a long time now for your two main series or your two main collections. I mean the anthologies and the mini Kush. Can you tell us how did that happen?
Yeah, so it's basically the opposite of what Johanna and Marie-France just told. It was just like really a budget decision, not like make the most beautiful thing. But yeah, first we started more like, I think it's almost like American format, like B5, like almost this superhero size magazine as an anthology also. And there, yeah, we distributed it for 1 year in Latvia. Well, in the very beginning, we started distributing it for free. We wanted to have like advertisements in there. But after 2 issues, we realized we cannot get advertisements. Also, it was like 2008, like financial crisis. And it was also a bit like maybe a thought like the artists would make the advertisements, like you have the stickers in Strapazin where, but yeah, here it wasn't possible to get such amount of advertisement. So after 2 issues, we switched and we sold it, and we got distribution in all kiosks in Latvia, which also was difficult. They thought comics is only for kids and they didn't want to distribute it at all first. They thought it's pornographic and violent, and it's not true. It's like, you know, Kush, it's well, just like normal adult stories, some funny ones, some more serious, but like, yeah, not pornographic or violent. But yeah, if you think it's only for kids, maybe you can get this impression. But so yeah, after then 4 years distributing with this distributor, they just didn't want it anymore, and we basically broke down. We made like a funeral party for Kush. But then Sanita came. She had a EU project about like environmental protection, like this youth in action, this EU, like youth exchanges, and there they always have a budget in them to make some kind of publication. And she thought that could be like much more interesting if they made a comic magazine. And then we, yeah, it was like 500 euros. So we made like a really tiny, it's like in the mini Kush format, but like a thin magazine. And we did it in English, and we kind of, you know, people still enjoyed it. We got to distribute it outside of Latvia. And then gradually, like the second issue was like also like this format, but 2 in 1. As we didn't have like any money, we made like issue 2 and 3 in the back. And then with the time, we actually also got some funding from government. So we could like afford like better printing, and we got like to the thicker format. And actually, yeah, you say it's our signature format. We actually want to make it bigger again. Like some people also like, oh, it's too small. Or like artists sometimes said like, yeah, it's nicer to have like more space. And we made like 2 issues of Kush in A5 format, double as big. But like the feedback from most people was like, yeah, that they like the smaller format much more. But yeah, it was basically like really accidental. We didn't have money. We like, yeah, we couldn't get distribution, so we just made like the cheapest possible way. So that's how we came to this format, which in the end was also successful and also helped us to distribute, because so small, it's like much easier to send around or to bring to comic festivals, just fill your luggage.
Yeah, I guess that's part of not only Kush identity, but also like part of your secret to be so spread it like around the world, you know, because it's kind of easy to find Kush in around almost around all Europe and also in America. And actually, we have Alejandro from Musaraña in Buenos Aires, who was part of the publishers invited. He also had some copies at his bookstore at some point, and that's, I guess, the main reason, one of the reasons that makes it easy for you to carry so many books to festivals all over the place also, because with you can feel you can put like, I don't know, 1,000 books into one regular suitcase, you know, because they are this big. That's genius, David. You made it. Thank you for that.
But, maybe there will be something which we discuss with everyone else, like distribution in general is getting much more difficult. Like if I want to send like one mini Kush, like this tiny mini Kush to Switzerland, I pay €7. Like the cover price of the mini Kush is €5. So it's but yeah, if I send 10, it's also still only €7. So, but like for individual orders, it's like really bad now, like the postal costs. And I guess like everywhere, postal costs are rising. It's getting more and more difficult to distribute, but always have to find new ways. But yeah, even with the small format, we're struggling with this distribution. But yeah, now more and more, like every year, it gets more expensive.
Yeah, everybody's struggling as usual in the comics world. Thank you, David, for your input. It was like I knew most of the story, but I was missing some of the details, and I think the same goes for the rest of the group. So we thank you for that. Now, speaking of materials and formats, etc., I would like to ask something to Flor. I guess she will answer in Spanish, but I will ask her in both languages so everybody can get it, and she and also she can get the question. I would like to ask you, Flor, why you decided to make. I mean, when you decided to start publishing, you could have gone in many different directions. You could have done a magazine or a series of books or just like regular A5 scenes, something like that. But you decided to make a newspaper, like in newspaper paper, like in print. How do you call it? Like newsprint, I think is the technical name of it. Why you, of all of the options, you decided to go that direction? Flor, te estaba preguntando por qué de todo lo que podrías haber hecho con Femiñetas, o sea, de todas las distintas materialidades o formatos que podrías haber adoptado, decidiste hacerlo en diario, como en papel, prensa. ¿Por qué eso fue importante?
Yes. I'm journalist 20 years ago. Primero porque para mí el diario es una decisión política. Había una necesidad de un formato que sea diario en cómics, que no estaba demasiado, por lo menos, revisado, y aprovechando también la salida de los feminismos en diferentes lugares del mundo a las calles, me parecía una buena forma de distribución fácil, económica de algún modo y rápida, de fácil acceso y de fácil comprensión por el lenguaje del cómic, sobre todo que incluso no tenga barreras idiomáticas.
Can't hear you, José.
Sorry. Sorry, I was for a moment I was my dad, like the mic was muted and I was talking anyway. I'm sorry for that. Flor, te preguntaba si terminaste ahí, si puedo traducir. So I would translate. She was, I mean, it's like femiñetas experience is really similar to Kush. Flor was saying that she decided to use newsprint because it was really cheap to produce, really easy to like move around, like to handle to everybody. You can put a lot of copies in like just like Kush in one backpack or in one suitcase, and it made it really cheap for the people to buy it. And you know, she was also saying that there wasn't at that time many alternative comics being printed in newspaper, and it's also related to the fact that she's been I mean, she's still a journalist, and before Femiñetas, she was a journalist for 20 years or so. So like newsprint or newspapers were like part of her professional background. I mean, she grew up with like writing for newspapers, so she wanted to do one of her own about feminism and also including illustration and comics. So those are the main reasons why she decided to go for that format. Easy to produce, and kind of cheap and easy to move around. And and I was missing something. She said it was also a political decision because she thought, because at that point when Femiñetas started, I think it was 2017 or 2018, like the whole feminist movement around the world was strongly raising up. And in a lot of demonstrations, there were like female artists or trans feminist artists like printing their stuff and handling it out or selling it for cheap during the demonstrations. So it was also related to that. Actually, while I was saying that, I was thinking about maybe some of you have heard about Resist, which is this like feminist newspaper gatefolder from Desert Island, and I think Maya Spiegelman and Francois Molly put together a couple of years ago for one of the Women's Day demonstration. I guess maybe Conrad, you have like one copy around the house, or you have heard of it, or
yeah, it's somewhere around here.
Well, it's related to that. It's also a political position. That's what she was saying. Now, Conrad, you're the last one of the group.
I have a question.
Yes.
Well, Flor also said that, well, comic, well, one side was the medium, so the format of the newspaper, and the other aspect was the format of having comics, which was kind of a form easy to access to transmit those contents. And I was just wondering, in terms of this format of the newspaper, if Flor, well, it's a bit a provocative question, believes that this newspaper shall be kept once it has been read or thrown away, because might be something where we distinguish as well, because we always at Edizione Moderne try to do an object which you love and which you keep, but a newspaper is something different per definition, and maybe once I have absorbed the content, I can also throw it away. What is your opinion about that?
Flor, ¿querés que traduzca? ¿Entendiste la pregunta?
Perdón.
¿Que traduzco la pregunta?
Sí, puede ser, que creo que entendí.
Sí, Julia, pero por las dudas, yo le preguntaba si pensa, como los vamos a tirar, a desprendernos de los diarios una vez que los leemos, ¿no? Una vez que absorbiste el contenido del diario, lo tirás. ¿Cómo pensaste Femiñetas en ese sentido? Si es algo que esperás que la gente deje por ahí, tire por ahí o se lo olvide, o si esperás que lo conserve.
Bueno,
¿Sí pensaste en eso en un momento?
Muchas veces sí, lo que pasa es que para mí mi fantasía era que se lleve bajo los brazos y que circule. No importa, de hecho he visto grafitis y collage de resignificando las viñetas en otros espacios, en otras formas artísticas, y me parece súper valioso eso, y me gusta. Pero tenemos también como un plus que en cada edición incluimos un póster de doble página y generalmente, bueno, suben a redes y nos comparten en diferentes modos, digamos, ese modo de alguna manera coleccionable que tiene el periódico. No lo he pensado, porque también hemos mejorado el papel, hemos hecho algunas cuestiones, digamos, en ese sentido, como de cuidados, y no sé, no ha pasado que me encuentre tiradas cuando voy a casas de colegas y demás, los periódicos. Hay como un cuidado porque quien adquiere femiñetas es como que rinde cierto amor por el trabajo colectivo y de muchas personas que justamente cruzan algunas historias, porque muchas están escritas, guionadas en un lugar, se ilustran en otra. Hay como un respeto muy grande, por lo menos en las experiencias que he tenido. Pero bueno,
I will translate that, and then I will ask Conrad something. Flor was saying that she never gave a deep thought to that, but her experience is that people who has a copy of the newspaper puts a lot of value and respect into it, and most of the time they never dismiss it. That they tend to keep it because they understand how much hard work was put into it, and many times the people who bought a copy of femiñetas, maybe they don't keep it themselves, but they handle it to somebody else in order to keep it going. So it's a way of making circulation easier, since there's not a lot of copies. People give one copy to once somebody has read it, they give that copy to somebody else. And at the same time, every issue has like a poster. So many times, many people, they keep once they read the issue, they keep it, they conserve it because of the poster. So I think that's a good strategy to avoid everybody like just dismissing like the newspaper, which is what most of us do with newspapers all of the time. Gracias, Flor. Thank you, Flor, for that. Now I would like to.
I'm sorry, because I believe this is interesting. There was also this aspect of the icons, which which are printed in the newspaper, and Flor has seen in other contexts, maybe as a graffiti or something. So actually, the content and the drawings have traveled, but through another format, through another person, which I believe is super beautiful. Or did I understand it wrong, José?
Please, José.
Oh, José. Flor, ¿me entendiste? ¿Es correcto lo que dije?
A ver, reitérame. Sí.
Que dijiste que hay esas viñetas en el diario y que vos viste esas viñetas en otros contextos dibujado para otra persona, en un muro o algo.
Sí, de hecho,
okay.
Como resignificadas, incluso en collage, recortadas en collage de la cárcel, por ejemplo, de mujeres en Barcelona, que nos han compartido, y de hecho, bueno, es como siguen resignificándose, reutilizándose esas viñetas en otros formatos. Se recortan y se pegan en muros, en lugares de alfabetización de personas de aprendizajes, bueno, por ejemplo, de madres islámicas que trabajan en el Raval, en un barrio de Barcelona. Ese tipo de cosas para mí fue como la verdadera función que tiene para mí hoy un periódico, y que sea en cómic también, que tenga esa facilidad en muchos casos de condensar esas historias y que puedan ser rápidamente significadas.
Flor underlined this aspect of, well, this capacity of, well, of a newspaper, but especially comics, to condensate content. And she said that she has also seen on social media people, well, women from a women's corso, which have a corso prison, well, made collars out of femiñetas. So, Jose, sorry for interrupting.
No, it's okay. My connection went down for a bit, so I lost some of what Flor was saying. So thank you for stepping in for me and translating. I would like to ask something to Conrad. Now he's the, as I was saying, the last one of the group who's missing the individual question. Conrad, it's crazy because I think Fantagraphics is the publishing house that I have. That I know the most. You know, I've been a big fan of for many years now, like I think most of us or many of us. But since you stepped in from the shadows just a couple of years ago, your publishing practice is the one that I'm the less familiar with. So I would like to, and you know, at the same time, I think Fantagraphics is like maybe the biggest structure of all of us in the group. Not only in this meeting, but of the ones invited for the magazine. But in the end, it's really similar because even though you're a different scale, a bigger scale, I'm pretty sure it's like for you guys in the company, it's just a lot of people, I mean, many people put in a lot of hard work into producing great comics. So my question is, what is it for you, if it's possible to describe it briefly, a regular day at the office or a regular day at work? I mean, which aspects of publishing or editing are you mostly involved with or interested in?
Wow, that's a good question.
Sorry.
No, it's it is funny because it's such a I mean, it feels like such a small group of us, even though it's, I guess, probably more people working at the company than most of the publishers here. But let's see. I guess maybe at our publisher, it's a thing where you do have to have maybe more defined roles in a way. You know, we have people that are just designers, or we have someone who is like just working with the printer and like picking out kind of paper and inks and that sort of thing. But I think for me, something that I try to do is just keep learning a bit about everything, because I think my main day-to-day is to work with the kind of books themselves, you know, with the words, and you know, really just do the editorial, kind of help shape stories if that's the point we get the book. But I really do like to think of the book holistically. I really did like what Johanna was saying about kind of building it like a house, because you really, you have the sort of interiors of it that you really want the story to be, it has to be just right. But then the cover is like what people see immediately, and it's the thing that you send to our distributors and the sales reps and goes on Amazon and goes to bookstores. So you really have to kind of think about what images will just really kind of immediately grab people. I think that's kind of a lot of my job, is to see like if you have say I have about 5 or 6 books in a season, kind of think about, like, you have to think about what the essence of what this book is about and kind of what the hook is, and then think of the imagery that really captures what this book is, and think of some kind of descriptions that really get to the heart of it. Because I think a lot of what my job is taking a comic, which in some ways is kind of hard for someone to decipher if they haven't read the whole thing, So I think a lot of my job is to take this comic and kind of help someone understand what it is, kind of very immediately, and get them intrigued, so that in the various channels it can, hopefully find the right people that would really enjoy it, I guess. I hope some of that made sense.
Yes, made a lot of sense. I want to add something, like a new question. You said you keep yourself busy with editing also. I mean, when you start working on a book that is not yet finished, you work heavily on that. I mean, you keep conversations with the artist in order to make like narrative or graphic decisions. Is that right?
Yeah, I would say that we generally got our manuscripts in completed. I somehow found myself in the position to work on a lot of our translated works, so that is a much more kind of creative thing in a way that I find, where you get to collaborate with the translator to really kind of make the writing kind of naturalized to English, and I don't know, figure out things like how to translate a joke properly, that sort of thing. But I really do enjoy kind of getting right in the text and the story. I have a lot of fun with that.
Mm-hmm. And in order to complete like this round of questions related to design and materials, etc., do you get involved with that too at some point, with at least some of the books you're working with?
I do. I probably annoy my designers more than they'd like, with offering unsolicited opinions on the way books should look. But I do. It is something that's really fascinating to me, because the more I sort of learn about the options available for a book, it's sort of like what Marie-France was saying, that you can really just tailor the look and feel of a book to like really fit exactly what it should be. Because there's just so many different papers now and different ink treatments and that sort of thing. So I just try to really think about that, actually. It's a bit it's a bit daunting at times to kind of just learn everything that you can do. I have something kind of funny here. For instance, I have this dummy book, and there's a big part of the story of this book that has to do with a briefcase. So I thought, what if we made a book that was a briefcase? So in one sense, it's just a regular book, but on the other, you can hold it.
And are you gonna really do it that way?
We are, yeah.
Okay.
This was a crazy idea I had that I sort of wish I maybe thought of something else, but it's really fun to go to sort of absurd lengths to make a very unique object sometimes.
And it makes you look like, I mean, if you're not reading the book and you're using it as a briefcase, it makes you look like a really fancy and serious person. So it's useful in many ways. If you want to look like you have a job, or you're dealing with serious stuff, you can just take the briefcase and go, I don't know, take the street, and that's it. People will respect you that way. So you're involved in many parts of the process in the end. You're, well, not exactly all over the place, but kind of all over the place.
I feel like initially when I came into this, I thought kind of the job of the editor is just the words, but I think, the more I think about it, it's like you kind of really have to think about the book holistically, as a story, as an object, because it's all the words and pictures combined.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Totally.
There was sort of an irony to me that the three books I chose to send you guys to showcase seem to be our sort of biggest, most expensive, hardest to ship ones. Sort of the opposite David and Flora here. You guys do have it a little easier in a way.
Yeah, you can put them in the briefcase and just move them, carry them that way. I'm
a little envious in the. I mean, I guess there are some problems in what you were saying, David, about it can be so expensive to ship such a small thing. I guess it's maybe there's even the opposite problem where if a book is too big, it's also there's all sort of logistical complications.
Yeah, distribution post is, I think, one of the biggest challenge of the book world in general, and it's pretty hard for comics publishers all over the world. So that was my round of individual questions. I have a couple of more for like general questions or group questions, but I think Johanna wanted before she said she wanted to discuss something or to ask something to the rest of the group. Johanna, am I right? Would you like to ask something to the rest?
Oh yeah, I was wondering if you guys are open to share the system of how you pay artists and how that maybe changed throughout the years, because I know with some of you, of course, from informal conversations, but I think the reason why I'm asking it also is because now there's this comics union in Germany being founded, and I know they have a lot of conversations also about payment and accountability of publishers. And I know that there is also a movement where artists in this age where artists can also kind of like promote their own work, so they're not so dependent on like really big publishers anymore also, right? So there's this shift where it used to be the dream to be published by someone like Fantagraphics, for example, and it's still the dream, but it also changed in a way that sometimes I feel if someone, for example, publishes with me, that they can even make more money than if they would publish with someone else. Or, for example, and I think that's interesting. The bigger the company gets, of course, the more money you have to spend on distribution and so on and so forth. But long story short, I was just interested if you could share with that and how your stance are on like sharing risks on when you're putting out a books, and how you negotiate that with artists and so on. Just maybe like I know that's like a very extensive topic where we could talk about for ages, but just in general, I'm interested how you, if you feel as a publisher that you are also, that you should take a risk, that you should share the risk with the artist if they are already dedicating so much time into making this for so many years when they make bigger books and so on. I mean, yeah, if you're open to that. I also understand if you're like, if you want to keep that private or more vague, but in general, this is something that I'm personally interested in now that we're here together. Yeah.
Thank you, Johanna. Who wants to step in?
Maybe I can start because I think I might have a similar approach to Johanna. Then we can go to another approach. Like for the mini kush, for example, we pay everyone the same and we pay like immediately up front. And we printed now 110 minis, like by really different artists, some like from more famous ones to like really unknown ones. But there it also helps us that, okay, the printing costs are quite cheap, but there, yeah, we pay everyone the same and immediately, and basically the more famous artists maybe carry the less famous ones. But okay, we actually had some really good sellers by unknown artists, which we reprinted like a few times. And of course, yeah, when we reprint stuff, then we pay again. And now we also do the mono kush series, which are slightly bigger books. And there we also usually pay everything up front. And well, one reason behind this is also I'm kind of too lazy to count all the time, like how many books I'm selling. And then if I, after maybe sell 20 books per year, it all seems depressing to pay like the artist a tiny fee. Like every year you get like a tiny amount of money. So I think it's, yeah, better to pay everything up front. We don't have huge fees. But yeah, we also are not a huge publisher. We try to compensate this also with like giving a lot of copies to the artists so they can sell it themselves. But we also usually, we basically don't keep the copyrights in most cases. We let the artists like if they find a French edition for the same book, so they get the whole amount. I'm not keeping anything. And yeah, that's like my approach.
It's not like you're too lazy. It's really.
No, it's not only about me being too lazy. But yeah,
No.
yeah, the thing about sharing the risk, which Johanna said, actually, like all the books I publish, I really love them, and sometimes, yeah, maybe choose the wrong book, or it's not the wrong one, but it's not the best seller, but in the end, yeah, pay the same as for a book, which then I sell out. But well, like now my bestseller is DJ Cat, and we reprinted it 3 times, and like I pay, of course, each time I pay the artist again, but other monos I have maybe sold much less, but I pay the same like to the other artist. So in the end, I think it kind of compensates. Some books are better selling and others are less selling, but as I have this economical approach with the printing costs, like as I said before, I don't have like the really expensive, fancy design options and hardcovers and stuff like that. And yeah, sometimes you get also funding by, for example, Portuguese book, like Portuguese library for Portuguese comic books. So of course this helps to immediately pay better to the artist than if there's no funding also.
David, just to 2 brief questions, just to get it right. So you pay upfront every time for the whole print run, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and what about the anthologies? How do you deal with that? Because you have like 20 or so collaborators in each issue. How do you deal with that when there's no funding involved?
Yeah, the anthology is the tougher question. They're actually in the beginning, like when we started out with publishing the anthologies, we maybe in the first year we even paid more. We kind of copied almost the system from Strapazin, where I think everyone gets paid 50 euros per page. But yeah, we don't have this huge print run. Like it's like between 1,000 and 1,500 copies, and if you have 20 artists, like it's not possible to pay so much. So there it depends. Some anthologies we can pay like a symbolic fee of 100 euros per comic, and sometimes we have some funding. Well, we made like a special issue like a couple of years ago where we had really good funding, but there were only 4 artists, but actually they got paid like really well. Well, they also had like to make like a special story. They got paid like over 1,000 each for their comic. But yeah, we try to give a lot of like these copies, at least like each artist will get 10 copies which they can sell. But yeah, it's definitely not really worth financially for the artist to, because yeah, it's small print run, and then like all the artist costs divided through 20. If we really would pay each one like the regular artist fee, which is like, I don't know, like 10 or 12%, I think, in the book market, then each one gets like 50 euros. So sometimes we offer the artist this, and but yeah, that's actually a question about sustainability in comics, which we should address if we. What am I doing with these anthologies if I'm just we're exploiting people? But well, we're like really upfront with that. We always tell the artists before what they're getting into, and they can, of course, not collaborate. But yeah, it's kind of, the anthology part is depressing. I'm interested in other anthologies, how they can keep it up and pay like some normal fee, which, yeah.
If I can jump in.
Oh, sorry, I just wanted to, I mean, I'm very interested in what all of you have to say about this topic, but maybe we can speed it up a little so we can talk about another aspect because before finishing, because time is running out. But sorry, Johanna, just go on.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to jump into the anthologies thing also. Like for example, also David, I cannot pay the artists up front. At this point I have 3 installments. To get the first installment when the book comes out, then 1 installment half a year later, and then another installment half a year later. Because some of the artists they get 15% of the cover price, but then also some of them can choose if they want to have a third of the edition instead because they go to fairs a lot, or they can have like part edition, part artist fee. And of course, the more money they get, the less percentage they actually get because of all the taxes and so on and so forth. And for the anthology, in the beginning, people paid their own traveling, and when they came here the first time, they partook in the Cup House thing in 2017, and then we gradually the more money we got, the more money they also received. And this year, they were paid. Like besides the traveling and the accommodation and the food, they were paid like 1,600 euros each, I think. But that was the only way that they could afford to be here for 2 weeks and work, because one of them also had brought their baby that was 4 months old and their partner and so on. But we made the decision, Aisha and I, that if we won't get this funding anymore for this book, because the first times we always just co-finance it with merch and so on, that if we wouldn't receive the funding anymore, that we will not continue the anthology, because we want to kind of like set an example, because we know a lot of artists would even pay to be part of the anthology to get this visibility and to be seen, and we kind of like say that we have to take this responsibility to find other ways to finance something rather than continuing like a situation where everyone exploits themselves, people that make the book, people that draw for the book. And that it's, of course, it's a shame because then it doesn't exist anymore, but we thought we want to kind of put a stop to it. But that it's also a unique case because it's part of a residency. So it's not just a book, it's also connected to people being here for 2 weeks and so on. So they have to take this time off. So it's like a very specific situation. But I do think sometimes I talk a lot with other artists about it, that sometimes a publisher needs to kind of make a decision to not do things that they would like to do, because they know that they would always find artists to be part of a project where they would just do things for free. But then, I don't know, even for the Strapazin things, I asked Aisha to do it, but I know that she has a lot to do. So for example, I will pay Aisha an additional 300 euros for making this comic. Maybe some of you did the same. I don't know, because I thought it's still, I understand the situation of Strapazin being an anthology, and that 300 euros for an anthology is like a good amount that you would receive. But then also, I know if she takes the time, it's something that is also beneficial for me as a publisher. It's like my business card. She makes this comic about me, about Colorama. So then I should partake some of this like responsibility. And in this case, I can just do it with money, basically, to kind of like offset the labor that she has. But I also didn't really think about it if I can afford it. I just made the decision because I don't know. It's, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. I sort of think about it as when I think about the economics of comics, I feel like like none of it quite makes any sense. Like I don't know, if you think about it, it's like someone or like an artist will put so much time and effort into making a comic, you know, maybe even years sometimes to make, you know, 100, 150, 200 pages of art in a story. And then someone can buy it for like 20 or 30 euros. And I feel like when you think about it, like the price of a book is just sort of artificially just a strange kind of number. I mean, of course, you can't really make it much more because of the, you know, the weight of capitalism on all of this. But I think you'll never really be able to compensate the artist for just quite how much labor and kind of imagination goes into all of this. It's sort of an impossible task, I think.
Marie-France, I think.
Yeah, it's an interesting question in general, how you the relationship, the financial relationship you have with your authors, and it's something that at Edizione Moderne is a very current topic. Maybe to be brief and to give you a little bit of context, we inherited basically when we took over from David, who founded Edizione Moderne, basically a double system. On one hand, there is like a practice in the publishing world of how you pay authors, and it's kind of I don't think there is a rule or a contract or a law that says it has to be like this, but everybody kind of does it the same way. And the other system that we inherited was just David's system, how he did the contracts and how he paid his authors. And we noticed that very often the conditions were not the same for everyone. So basically the person who is better at dealing conditions got better conditions. And that was something that we wanted to change, to make it fairer for everyone working with us. We wanted to have the same contract with every new author working with us. And this is what happened starting from this year. We made a collaboration or a deal with a labor union in Switzerland, or the labor union in Switzerland, that has an undergroup for people in the field of illustration. And we made a deal with them that we would do like a base contract, in the sense that we will discuss with them the conditions with our authors, and they kind of give us the okay from their part that they think it's fair enough to work with authors that way. And we did it on one side to be fair to our authors. So as an example, we changed how we work with subsidiary rights. Is that the right word? So how they are able to sell the license or the rights for other languages. After how many years do they get the rights back if we weren't able to sell them, for example? So we shortened that time. Now after 2 years, if we didn't sell it, I don't know, in Italian, they get the possibility to do that themselves, which was something that wasn't like this at the beginning or in the other contracts. And we also tried to be fair. If a book does really well and sells a lot of copies, that the share that they get for the copyrights kind of proportionally gets also bigger. So to speak very concretely about these numbers, for the first 1,000 copies, they get 5%. From 1,001 to 5,000, they get 10%. And then it goes up to 13 and then 15%. So basically, the idea is if we get a bestseller, we feel like the author should also get a bigger part of the cake, basically. So, but we also did this collaboration with this labor union because, I mean, on one side to be fair to the authors, but also because we felt like it's fairer for us to kind of show how much work we do, because it goes both ways. We had some moments where we realized that the public, the press, and even sometimes authors or illustrators really don't know what's behind what we do. So how much work goes into producing a book into proofreading, into the designing part, into distribution, into organizing book tours, into organizing events where people can buy the book, into marketing strategies, into social media, etc., etc. It's something that we felt people didn't really see or didn't really know. So this contract also serves a little bit as a reminder of, we know you don't get maybe a lot of money for what you do, but we're trying to be fair to you, but also we want you to know how much we are doing for this book as well. And another part of this is that I'm guessing it's the same for all of us, that fundraising still is an essential part for comic publishers, or publishers in general, I guess, to sustain their work and to survive, basically. So we're very lucky in Switzerland, I have to say, that we have a system that allows to do fundraising in a very in a kind of a big way compared to other countries. So we had a lot of possibility to get money for printing costs, for example, which is something that we're very grateful for. And still, the depressing part is that sometimes it's still not enough. So it gives you an idea, and the author as well, how difficult the economy of this world is. We're trying to go in a good direction, but still the best thing would be if we just had many more readers. So this is actually what's with the work that we are doing in spreading the word, not just about Edition Moderne, but about the medium in general, is that the only way to survive is if more people buy and read what we do. So it's beneficial for both parties, for us and for the authors.
And maybe talking fundraising, which, well, yeah, it's true, we have a privileged situation in Switzerland concerning that, but this is only for Swiss authors.
Yeah,
an important detail I want to say, because we do not make a Swiss program, and this never has been a criteria for us in programming. So depending on the program we have in a year, we have more or less possibilities to apply. And this is really difficult for us that the funding system functions in a national way somehow, and we do not think like that. Well, we could be more opportunistic in that way, but we don't want to be.
Yeah.
I want to ask a really quick question to you, my friends. Thank you for elaborating that much and for being so clear. Just to get it straight, so you offer every artist or every new artist the same deal? Is that right? Now it's the same for everybody?
I was talking about the authors that we publish in the original language, so where the rights are with us.
Okay.
We buy the rights from Fantagraphics, for example. That is a contract that is done with them, and we have less influence on that, and we cannot force our conditions. But the idea is, if from the start up we have the rights to some work and we collaborate with an author, we have the same standard contract for everyone, and we pay an advance. That was something I didn't say at the beginning. That is calculated on the base of what we think the price of the book will be, and what we think the print run will be.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a standard in many places or for many publishing houses.
Yeah.
So we are almost on time, like 7 minutes away from the Zoom conversation, like exploding. Or if somebody wants to ask something or to add something, we don't have. So I mean, we don't have. Maybe we have like 10 more minutes. It's not like it's going to blow up in 7 or 6. But I was trying to say we don't have that much time left. Somebody wants to ask something, add something, make jokes. Maybe Conrad wants to complain about the time zone in Seattle because it's like 4 a.m. in the morning for him now, something like that. It's the right moment for everything.
I have a last question if nobody else has. Because we were also, I mean, the motivation for Jose and me to do that issue was the idea of how we felt the comic community also sometimes has something of a big family, and that we feel that many people we know in this professional field of comic publishing or fans themselves. So actually people producing comics are also the first buyers and readers. And I wanted just to ask an open question into the round if this is something you agree with, or I mean, somehow it's really contradictory because reading a book is something which is really intimate and which is very happening in general very analogly, and I'm really seduced by the object. And on the other hand, we have this community aspect, and then we meet in digital space like now. So we have always, I feel like there are often these really different things, an analog object and meeting people online and offline, and the intimate moment of reading and this community aspect. Sorry, it was a long and a bit weird question, but
Sorry, I'm not totally sure if I caught what the exact question part of it was, but it's certainly there's certainly something I don't know about the visual nature of comics. I think makes it able to be kind of enjoyed by all of us who speak, many different languages. It is interesting to me, Johanna, that you your stuff is mostly in English. I'm kind of, I imagine that's because it's just sort of the most broad, sort of can reach the most amount of people, or if your authors are going to festivals wherever, it's kind of the lingua franca there.
Same goes for Kush.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That is not based in an English-speaking country, but you publish mostly or only, I guess, lately, at least in English. Johanna, do you want to say, or David, something about it?
Well, for me, Latvian market is just way too small. Well, as I told before, when we had the distributor in Latvia, we actually had same almost print run around 1,000 copies, and we sold them quite well here. But yeah, if we just cannot distribute them, so then we had to distribute ourselves. So we switched to English, which was the most natural way to spread it more. You know, if I would publish in Germany, it's maybe a bigger, you can reach more people in German, but yeah, Johanna can tell about that. more in English, that you get the global audience, maybe attract.
I think that just my first connections, the first people that bought my comics were people in the US. And so there was a time where more people in New York or Chicago would know about my press than people in my own hometown in Berlin. And that was just, but that's just, I mean, that kind of taps into the question that Julia asked, that for me a big thing about it is very much the community, and I think the money is circulating sort of among us. I mean, of course, the bigger it gets and the higher the editions are, there's also, you have to involve sort of like a more broader or mainstream audience in any case. But I think the people that make books also buy the books and they read the books. I totally agree with that. And I think there's something specific to this market where, since there's not so much money to be made, there's not so much competition, I think. So there's like a genuine support of presses. So for example, I noticed in smaller presses that it's very common that you work with artists that also work with other presses. So I share artists with, like, for example, Perfectly Acceptable Press, who's like maybe in the US market like an equivalent to what I publish in a way. And I would never ask my artists only to publish with me only because I discovered them, because I think for them they should seek out opportunities with as many people that they can. And I think the smaller the community is, or the smaller the scale of publishing, the more there's like a solidarity there and like an empathy or generosity. And of course, the bigger it gets, it kind of gets lost in all the administration, obviously, right? So of course, Carlsen Verlag can't think a lot about like the community of comics, I guess. But I do agree a lot that it's a big part of it, and also why we are all doing it, because we see each other and we recognize each other's work. For me, it's the highest compliment if another publisher thinks that I made a great book, because they exactly know all the work that goes into it. That I saw what you talked about, Marie-France, really resonates with me also a lot, and you, Julia, with like that your work should be seen and it should be transparent, like in both ways. People have to understand more what labor goes into actually making a comic, and that it's a labor and not just a hobby, but also like being a publisher, there's all these steps. And also the artist, I have this, for me, it's a process to make also some artists understand that they, if they share the work, that they should also credit the publisher. You know, there's a lot of times articles about books and nowhere in any way is the publisher mentioned. Like, it's nice that it's very good at that they just like take all the images and then don't give any credit. But even also artists sometimes forget to credit the publisher because they don't understand that at this point where you make this together, it becomes something sort of shared. And I do really appreciate making all these processes as transparent as possible. So I think it's so interesting that what you're doing right now, Edition Moderne, I mean, I knew it before, that what you're doing, I think, can set such an example for other publishers. I think it's so inspiring. I think it's really cool. And yeah, so I appreciate this a lot with this issue, that these kind of processes are being made available, and people will hopefully be able to read it in the Strapazin issue, and they can read about, oh, they're working with the union and they're doing this, and I think that's cool.
I agree with Johanna that many times the media, I mean, when they publish something about a book, or when they talk about a book, or even the artists, sometimes they forget about publishers, because sometimes publishers are taken for granted. It's kind of hard to understand why that happens, and we don't have to elaborate on that now. But that was one of the motivations, I guess I would say, maybe implicit motivations for Julia and me to make an issue like this, that it's mostly focused on publishers and publishing, because we as publishers ourselves, we don't take any of this for granted. So I think in the end, like this whole Strapazin issue, that is at least so far titled Celebrating Publishing, it's a way of making visible all of the hard work that goes into putting together like a book, a scene, a newspaper, or whatever we do, you know. You guys, thank you for everything. This has been so far a precious experience, and we're glad for the fact that we're doing this and sharing this time with you. We will keep in touch. You will hear from us, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Also really nice to see all your
Really lovely to
contributions
see
and
all of you.
everything.
Yeah, and nice to meet you
everyone.
virtually.
Bye-bye.